The Fox's Fire by Danielle Ackley-McPhail. A fox is neither human nor beast, but an inhabitant of the space between. From In Mystical Taiwan, Fox Spirits. Ryoko moved like the morning mist through the cherry blossoms, silent, unnoticed, but with the swiftness of the summer storm winds. Her mouth gaped sufficient to reveal the tips of her needle-like teeth, deceptively delicate, as was the rest of her. A growl rumbled in her throat as she scented a strange beast on the morning breeze. She paused at the garden gate of her honored household, crouched and ready. Then the chicken's panicked cries disturbed the dawn. Fresh blood scented the air. Ryoko ran forward, teeth fully bared. Her tail bristled and her legs went stiff as she came face to face with what appeared to be a yako, a wicked fox. Only Ryoko's eyes narrowed. Something other, foreign and magical, taunted from beneath that fur. Slaughtered chickens lay scattered at his feet, and blood dripped from his muzzle, which gave the impression of being spread in a grin. In her head she heard laughter, as dark as the yako's black pelt. He stepped away from the carnage and sat, curled his tail around his feet, and began to bathe, making it clear he'd savaged the fowl for mere sport. Outraged, Ryoko lunged forward, her jaws snapping to close upon his throat, but nipping only air. Cunning stared back at her from tawny eyes. Again, the impression of laughter, as the black fox leapt straight in the air and spun away, his tail whipping tauntingly in her face. She gave chase, following the wrongdoer far across the earth, and even the ocean, to a land she had not seen before. The yako evaded her, but she remained at his heels, nipping and yipping. He pranced just out of reach, more as if he led than fled. But to what purpose? Ryoko's eyes narrowed, and she nearly stopped her pursuit, not trusting this intruder from a foreign land. Only the black fox spun and nipped her nose sharply, before giving another laughing cry and dashing away. All intention of giving up the chase left Ryoko's thoughts, and she pursued him. Suddenly, as his feet hit the soil of that other land, the wicked fox changed before her eyes, black fur flowing away until he wore a tawny hide, his legs lengthening as his body took on a rangy look, standing first on 4 legs, then on 2, a mingling of canine and man. Her mind named him Coyote, a trickster god of whom she had heard before, even in her far-off land. He loomed over her, menace in his gaze and stance, but only for a fleeting moment. Instinct had her drop into a crouch, her ears pinned. The moment she cowered, the menace was gone, and mischief again lit his gaze. The trickster took the form of the beast once more, pranced and laughed in a barking cry before vanishing before her eyes. Ryoko was left puzzled as to why he'd so clearly lured her here. She would have left this place herself. Only a group of native men crept from the forest around her, bare but for the leather leggings girding their hips. They had copper skin, not golden, their muscles flexing as they moved through the forest, bearing weapons, clearly on the hunt, as she was. One stood out, captured her attention first by his wild golden eyes, then by his strength and pride, which were pleasing to her. He paused to look her way, almost as if he sensed her. "Takolo," fox, one of the other hunters murmured low in their native tongue. "What is it?" The leader shook his head and waved the other man silent before proceeding forward. Ryoko cloaked herself in mist, crouching as they passed, alert to their surroundings but not her presence. Attracted by his intelligence and perception, as much as by the burnished glimmer of his copper skin. She forgot her retribution and followed the native man, drawn to him more with each passing moment. Before she could pursue, she felt herself drawn into the pocket realm, her fox self reverting to her kitsune form. "You cannot have him." Ryoko flinched at the sudden, soft-spoken words as the eldest one appeared beside her. The youngest whined, deep and low in her throat, desperate not to be heard. If they could have in her current form, her ears would have flattened down. This was no fickle whim. He was meant for her. She knew it. Even his name, Tokolo, decreed it. In his own Dakota language, he was branded Fox. Surely he was marked as hers from the moment of his naming. The urge to beg the eldest was strong, but such would not serve Ryoko well. "Come, child, it is time to go home." "May I not even play a while?" the kitsune asked softly, her tip-tilted eyes lowered in respect, choosing a seemingly trivial tack as the surest to gain her desire. After all, if she could but be with him, she had no doubt the eldest would then see their love was destined. Ryoko schooled her face into a faint and charming pout, one that had for centuries softened the old one's heart. In silence, she peered out from the veil of her black-tipped fox-red hair. Choru's gaze hooded in response. At her back there was a flicker, faint, as if of the afterglow of 1,000 tails of flame, fanned by a fractious wind. It was gone in an instant. Ryoko nearly wrinkled her nose at the fanciful thought. No kitsune known had more than 9 tails to their honor. Only legends of legends spoke of more. And yet, it took effort for Ryoko to remain still as the eldest pursed her lips. Every instinct told her to cower, to flee. But that was not the way to gain her heart's desire. Ryoko remained steadfast. After a moment, Choru let out a soft sigh. Satisfaction came to Ryoko's heart as the lines of the eldest's face smoothed and her chin tucked in the slightest of nods. "For one night you may go to him, child, but keep nothing of him for yourself." The eldest pinned her with a gaze. "This you will promise me." Ryoko's dainty pout deepened a moment into a less practiced expression, but she nodded, eyes still lowered, if only to hide her annoyance. She just managed to keep her fine brow from scowling. "Yes, Churu, I promise." It was inconvenient, but she was confident the eldest would recant the charge later. A slight frown came over the old one's face, and doubt tinged her gaze as she waved Ryoko on her way. Lips spread in a gammon grin, the young woman yipped her joy. With a twist and a leap, she passed a broken leaf over her head and transformed into a fiery vixen, 5 tails fluttering behind her as she dashed away.